Yo, 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 everybody. What is up? Welcome back to another, of course, barking wolf-tacular episode of the What Now podcast. Hopefully it's your favorite chiropractic podcast, your dog's favorite chiropractic podcast. We're super excited to have everybody here. If you guys have listened to the show, you know, we have the dogs pop in every now and then. That's because we're real people and we don't live in a perfect world. And so we're not going to cut it out just for the sake of looking good for you guys. But Zach, tell everybody who we have today. This is a long time coming. Super excited. A very special guest.
Definitely a long time coming. Super, super impactful conversation about to go down. Apologies on the dogs. But today we are joined by Dr. Brooks Hill, coming to us live from Austin, Texas, where she practices at LifeSpring Chiropractic with one of our other guests that we really enjoyed sitting down with, Dr. Matt Delgado and the team there. A little bit about Brooks, if you're not following her on Instagram. She graduated from Texas A&M, where then she went on to Parker University, and she built an amazing personal brand all around being a chiropractic student and what that looked like, and then now finds herself in Austin. So Dr. Brooks, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. A long time coming it is, and I'm very honored and very grateful to be here. I don't know how many of your listeners know, but you two played a really pivotal role in my chiropractic journey, so I feel very honored to be here.
Thanks.
Well, thank you.
I've always loved and respected everything that you've done in terms of the personal brand and stuff. I think that you made it really cool to be a chiropractic student. And I think that a lot of people would say the same thing about you in their influence to either choose chiropractic school or to build a personal brand. You've done really well. And so I think a lot of people would say the same thing about you. To get I guess like to kind of kick things off, like what made you decide like this is a thing that I want to do? When you were going into chiropractic school, was it always like a personal brand type thing? I know you were like big in the Texas A&M Chiropractic Society. How did Destination DC, which is your previous handle, how did that birth? Like, what's the origin story of that?
Man, well, to try to keep it as simple as possible, when I discovered chiropractic, or when chiropractic found me, as we always say, I started looking around for what chiropractic school looked like and what the application process looked like. And it was so easy to find in other professions. It was so easy to find a pre-PT student or a PT student or MD or whatever, profession you want to fill in the blank with. It was easy to find, and that was amazing, but it wasn't as easy in chiropractic. And so I thought, well, I had been thinking about starting an Instagram that was maybe a little bit more fun. I was always enjoying following bloggers and fashion bloggers. And I thought, why can't I combine the two? And so that's what I did. And my mom, it was a whole family affair. My mom helped me come up with the name. She's the one who came up with the name. My brother-in-law is the one who took like my first photographs, if you will, more like professional headshots. My sister styled me, like the whole thing. So it's been a whole family affair. And that is really, I think, a testament to one of my core values, which is family. And it really shows itself through my Instagram, even today, even through the name change.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And so with going through that, what all did you learn from social media one, but just becoming who you are today, going down the rabbit hole of school, pediatric chiropractic, what type of practices you wanted to be in? What all did you learn through that process?
Man, this question actually reminds me of something that Spencer told me in school when I was in maybe try 1 or try 2. And Spencer, I don't know if you remember this conversation, but you told me that you should spend your whole first year just being as open-minded as possible and absorbing absolutely everything. And then in your second year, you should take what you enjoyed from that first year and dive more into that. So for me, it was pediatric and prenatal. And then in your third year, when you're in clinic, you should start looking at business resources, marketing resources. And of course, you're actually putting into practice the things that you've enjoyed and the things that you've learned in clinic. So that was really the mindset. That was really the mindset. And that's truly what I've tried to pass down to other people. What's been really interesting social media wise, Zach, is when I started Destination DC originally, it was truly just to be a resource of showing what it looked like to apply to chiropractic school. When I started it, I was a sophomore at Texas A&M. And so when I started it, it was actually in conjunction when I was starting alongside 2 other students at the time, the Texas A&M Chiropractic Society. So that was a lot of fun. It created content for me. I was able to, combine the two and show that process as well. But yeah, it was just meant to be a resource. And if you scroll to the bottom of that page or of my page, I mean, you will see such a transition and really an evolution of from where we started to where we are now, full doctor status, if you will. But there's been a lot of change from being simply a resource of showing what it's like to apply to all the chiropractic schools to then being in chiropractic school and pursuing more study options and study tips and being more of the student resource, if you will, and then getting into clinic, showing what it's like to put all of that into practice. And then now being a doctor of chiropractic, I knew the closer I got to clinic, actually, I really wanted to start transitioning my content from being more chiropractor or chiropractic student focused to who I wanted to see in the real world. And so that was a tough transition. I'm happy to talk about that in a little bit if we want. But one thing I will say, and one thing I will encourage people is you have to be clear. Y'all talk about this a lot, right? You have to be clear on who you're trying to reach, who you're trying to speak to. And that's definitely been an evolution over time.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's like kind of like when people ask, like, like, what should I do? I think it really is kind of the thing, like you should learn everything. So that's nice to know that. I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that it really is such a thing. And I think, you should just be exposed to as much as possible. And so like, what are the kind of opportunities that, exploring all the realms of chiropractic? Because I think I've seen you go literally to everything, like in that first year, and I didn't even put two and two together. That's what you were doing. But like, how did your personal brand help your exposure to the possibilities that are in chiropractic? Like, what kind of doors did that open for you? Because like, I feel like, you did such a good job, like you're, speaking at Parker seminars and doing all those kind of things. Like, what kind of doors did that personal brand open?
Well, thanks for asking this question, because it gives me an opportunity to chat and encourage students, which is really one of my passions. And, in it, and this will make a little bit more sense in a second, but when I was in it and I was being offered some of these opportunities, obviously I was so excited and I felt so humbled. I felt so grateful. And I wanted to shout it from the rooftops in the sense of showing other students that it was possible, that they could, step into these leadership roles or do these things that maybe we weren't seeing other students do. We were seeing doctors do, but maybe not students. But I never wanted to come off braggadocious in any form or fashion. And so I feel now far enough away from it to be able to speak on it a little bit more directly, just in pure encouragement fashion. And so when I was in Tribe 1, I was online, and not by choice, but I had to be. And it was fall of 2020. And of course, I still had my Instagram and was posting. And here's another just little tip for anybody who does have a professional Instagram. And when it comes to personal branding, if you are talking about somebody or if you are referencing something, tag them. Like, getting exposure is a lot easier than we like to make it out to be. A lot of times we want to blame the algorithm or, big tech. And trust me, I could blame them all day. But we forget that we do have more power over getting in the eyes or in front of the eyes of the people that we want. And so when I was in Tribe 1, all of my posts, I was tagging Parker University. I was tagging Parker University and over. Well, one day I got a DM from Parker University that introduced themselves as the face behind, the name, the @ name, as what I didn't realize was going to become my first boss at Parker. And that was Jim. And he just said, "Hi, Brooks, I've been keeping up with, your journey, and thank you so much for tagging us. Like, we really appreciate that. Would you be interested in working for us part-time, doing like a student work study program," which is really common for Parker to offer in several different capacities, the gym or, marketing or, continuing ed, all of that fun stuff. And so he was like, "Would you be interested in that? We could use a little bit of help on the marketing team, social media side, and we see something in you." And so that's how it all got started. From there, I jumped at that opportunity because while everybody recommended do not work while you're in school, or at least in the first year, the work study program seemed really feasible to me because Jim really emphasized that I could be a student first. He was like, "Look, we get you're a student. But on the off hours that you do have," yeah, I'm putting quotation marks around that, you guys, if you're not watching the video. But on the off chance that you do have some extra time, like, we would love to use your brain and use your creativity. So that seems like a perfect fit for me. And that's exactly what I did. And so all throughout chiropractic school, I did that work study program. So I was able to make a little bit of money on the side, which was awesome. But even more so, the real value, in my opinion, which this is a whole other conversation too, where is value and what is value? Is it just a dollar sign, or is it the dollar signs that could be from, where you're at? And the doors started to open within Parker Seminars. My name just started getting thrown in the hat. And I want to thank, Jim for that. I want to thank a lot of people at Parker for that, who saw something in me and encouraged me to really jump in even when I felt scared. Because my first Parker Seminars, it was Parker Seminars XR. It was whenever February of 2021, when the winter storm came into town and we had to shift everything online. It was my first Parker Seminars, and I remember being so scared. I remember doing like a one-on-one interview with all of the speakers. That was my job, was after they spoke, y'all, to little old me was like asking them questions that were coming through the chat. And then I did like a one-on-one with Dr. Morgan. And at the time, as a Tri 2 student, I was like, holy cow, so I was just getting exposed and exposed and exposed. And I think saying yes to those opportunities out of gratitude and out of trust and faith, truly, that the Lord was opening those doors for a reason, is really what has kind of elevated me to where I'm at. And just to kind of summarize all of that throughout school, whether it was Parker Seminars opportunities, whether it was even you guys outside of Parker, right? Like other seminars that would come through town, they would reach out to me. And whether I said yes or no, it just kind of depended on where I was at, what I wanted to represent, because that's also important to represent who you are and your identity, making sure that it aligns with the other brand you're looking into working with. But, you can get opportunities outside of that as well. And that only transferred into when I started applying for associateships.
Yeah. I mean, how do you feel like, as this evolution has happened, what do you feel like has changed about Brooks as a person? Like, we've talked about your change and your page and your change in your content and all of those kind of things. But like at the core, that your content represents you, it represents who you are and your identity. And it's something I've been studying quite a bit. And so like, how do you feel like your identity has shifted from Destination DC to now Dr. Brooks? Like, how do you feel like that has played out?
Great question. And thanks for kind of looping me back into that.
I got you.
I would say it's only affirmed and only pushed me more into my faith, to be honest. Because while I'm really thankful to pull in a little bit of social media here, or just actually,
it's not about social media.
Yeah, we don't even have to talk about social media in that regard, because even like the external of who I was surrounded with at school and things, there's always going to be negativity in some form or fashion. And it really pushed me into just trusting the Lord more in what path he was setting up for me, because there was a lot of unknown there, especially when it comes to the associateship side, and unknown in a healthy way. And all of that has just affirmed my faith, if I had to summarize. So from where I was as Destination DC, I feel like looking back, I see somebody who trusted God, but was still immature in their faith, to now I have a lot more ownership over what my faith looks like, and the trust that I have in the Lord to continue on with not only the dreams that I have, but the dreams that he has that I'm still unlocking.
Yeah. I want to put a pin in that word ownership and hold it up there. So I'll come back to that. Zach, you got anything on that?
No, one thing I'm curious of with the negativity that would come, if there, however much there was, not necessarily going down that rabbit hole, but I feel like with how vulnerable and how much you shared via social media, I would have to imagine you got to also hear from other students, whether it was at Parker, Palmer, whatever chiropractic school, and you might still hear from them. And so I'm curious, what are some of the more common questions you got that you feel or struggles that maybe the average person, especially for Spencer and I, we've been removed now for 3-ish years. What are some of those struggles, and how did you go about helping students overcome that? Like, how did you handle the DMs, if you will?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say, of course, it depends on kind of where they're at in their journey. From a pre-chiropractic standpoint, the most common question I get is, what school should I go to? And I'm going to tie all this together. In the first year of chiropractic school, the most common question I get is surrounding studying. And that could be in any class or, any study method, but just studying in general. In the second year of chiropractic school, I would say my biggest question is, what seminars do I go to? So more of like an investment. They're trying to figure out, where do I put my time, extra, again,
extra time,
and money that I do have. Yeah. And then clinic wise, I started getting a lot of questions about associateships, and I'm going to ruffle some feathers if that's okay. I started getting questions way too late about associateships.
Yeah,
So
true.
like I had 10 students who are asking me about associateships. And again, I'm very kindly wanting to ruffle some feathers because I want to kind of encourage and light by lighting a fire a little bit. And proactiveness is key, right? If we're, kind of back to the brand identity question, another thing chiropractic specific that I think we could be better at. I know I really can still be better at this, but I try to be, is what we're telling our patients and what we communicate, about chiropractic, right? If chiropractic is truly a lifestyle, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of decisions that could be made. There's a lot of mindset around things that aren't even chiropractic related necessarily that we can still overlap and we can still connect. So, if we're communicating a proactive lifestyle to people, right, to patients, we could also be proactive in how we go about decision making and how we start communicating or thinking about an associateship or working with a doctor or starting on our own. So just a little tidbit there. But overall, overarching, Zach, how I would answer that question is there's a common theme in all of those things in that my response is really the same. And not that I don't make it specific to people. Of course, I'm making it specific and I am answering DMs also. But it's that I would honestly say, kind of going back to what we talked about, if you can expose yourself to as much as possible, and this is one of my pieces of advice that I always give, especially early on chiropractic students. It was advice given to me by my very first mentor, my very first chiropractor when I was a freshman in college. And that was, the only thing more important than learning what you do like, what you do want, is learning what you don't. And the only way to do that is exposing yourself to a lot and putting yourself out there and taking some risks. And so the quicker that you can just immerse yourself in things, the better, because you're going to find out real quick what you don't want. And that only puts you closer to what you actually do want.
Yeah, the faster you filter out those not aligned things, the better you get there. And yeah, I think to coming back to my ownership pin, I'm glad that I grabbed that. I think, from the outside looking in, I mean, knowing you from the very beginning to seeing you now, I think that is a word that I would use to describe you a lot. Like, you're a lot more bold. You are a lot more confident. You just have a lot more ownership around who you are. And you can tell that you've done a lot of work, a lot of study, a lot of just development overall. And so I think that reflects, though, in the way that you communicate, the way that you hold yourself, the way that you practice, and all of those kind of things. So it's cool to see that evolution. And I think that a lot of people, to kind of bring everything together, I think that a lot of people feel like if they are an associate, they cannot have ownership over themselves as a doctor, especially. And I think that's a huge misconception. I think that in our profession, for some reason, we feel like our associates need to be clones of us. And I love Matt, but I also I can see that you guys have been working together just in your communication style and all of those kind of things. But I would say that you guys are totally different people. And you see that in your brands and your social media and the way that you communicate and all of those things. What would you say to someone about having ownership over your role as a doctor, as an associate versus an owner? How do you feel with it?
Yeah. I would say, kind of back to what I said a second ago, the more proactive you are about finding the right mentor, the right team, the right office, all of those things that you just said, Spencer, tend to fall into place if that's what you're looking for, right? Because some people kind of do just want to shut down, hone in, learn from one person and become that person. Cool. But if you're talking about, right, the realm of continuing to have your own identity, your ownership, right, everything you just said, I would say that takes work early on to match up with the right person. And so that makes me reflect, on mine and Matt's relationship. And it's really a testament to Dr. Matt. I mean,
he's awesome.
He attracts people who are not exactly like him. That is a really good sign of a great leader, in my opinion. And so that's, a little takeaway. If you're wanting to work for somebody who has those similar qualities where you are able to have more ownership, look for a team that is diverse, that does have different personalities, who, practice maybe similarly, but they have their own flair. I mean, we're always going to, right? That's the art of chiropractic. But yeah, quality wise or leadership quality wise, I would say look for a leader who is seeking out team members who are different intentionally.
It's really good. It's really good. And I think going back to, just because I've had the privilege of having a lot of conversations with Matt. I know for almost a fact, and I don't want to speak for him, but I would have to assume as a business owner, had he not seen and followed you through your proactiveness, that he would have let you maybe had the ability to free reign, if that makes sense, like to be your own self in the practice. And so I think if you're, again, listening and you might be a year out from graduating, really showcasing that and working on your skills so that when you do step into an associateship, you do have the ability to showcase that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Can I add one more thing? Because I want to elaborate on what you just said, Zach, and to Spencer's initial question. You're absolutely right. I mean, when I came in, that was on my resume. It really didn't have to be. It preceded me, right? And because that was something Dr. Matt had followed me and I had followed Dr. Matt. Actually, I was a fan first. So if you go back and look at mine and Dr. Matt's DMs, right? I was like DMing from, on his story post, like, this is so cool, or this is awesome. And then that turned into, oh my gosh, I would love to shadow. Is that a possibility? Yes, that's a possibility, shadowing opportunities. And then it just spirals from there, right? So I was a fan first, just to be really clear. But yeah, we did follow each other for quite a while. Long before associateship was ever brought into the mix. So whenever we got to interviews and the actual conversations about associateship, I actually didn't even have to bring up or ask, can I keep my own brand? Can I do this? Can I put... He was saying, hey, that's an asset to you, to LifeSpring. He was able to think future forward and big about, he could see what I was trying to do and the brand that I was trying to build. And he was encouraging of that. Hey, let LifeSpring only help you with that. Let your brand only help us with that. Like, keep doing what you're doing. So he created this environment before I ever even had to ask or worry about continuing on with my own brand. So find people like that.
And I think too, sorry, Spence, but I think too, on top of that, one thing you mentioned is you were a fan first. And I think what might become a limiting belief in a student listening, or even someone that might be an associate, whatever that might be, is, well, I don't have Brooks's aesthetic. I don't have Brooks's following. But I guarantee you, and I'm sure you can elaborate on this, like, how would you speak into someone that might be thinking those thoughts of, like, I don't have 10,000 followers. I don't create a reel every other day. I'm not on my stories every other day.
Great question. If you're worried about the aesthetic piece, I don't have your aesthetic, I would say, good. You have your own. You just have to figure it out. And part of figuring that out is, okay, look at the people that you do like following and get on Pinterest. Just go exercise your creative brain. Get inspiration. Get inspired. That would be my advice. Get inspired. And from inspiration comes a lot of action, a lot more action than I realized. But it took me kind of doing some research of, the people that I enjoyed following. So I would say, find where you find that inspiration, whether it's in other people's work, whether it's at a coffee shop, whether it's maybe not even in the realm of chiropractic. And that's something that Dr. Matt's taught me and y'all talk about this all the time, and y'all do such a good job of bringing people who maybe aren't even in the chiropractic realm or doing your own research, who aren't necessarily in chiropractic, and get inspired by them and combine all of that and make it yours. But then the second thing that I would say, Zach, is what you water grows. So if you're going to spend time or, excess time worrying about not having enough, that's only going to amplify, and you're going to stay in that place. And I don't want to say never, but you're not going to get to the place that you maybe want to be as quickly as you could. So what you water grows. So start watering the inspiration, start watering the creativity. And the last thing that I'll say maybe about this is, like you said, Zach, being a fan first can lead to so much. So reach out to these people. Oh my goodness. I had somebody come up to me at Parker seminars. I'm obviously not going to say who, but somebody who works for Parker who came up to me and said, hey, there's a student that I have who is a fan of yours, and she really wants your number. And she's kind of afraid to ask. And maybe this is harsh. And I said, oh my goodness, that is so sweet. That is so kind. I'm so grateful that you told me. And she said, yeah, so do you mind if I share her number with you? No, your number with her. Sorry. Do you mind if I share your number with her? And I said, oh my goodness, that's so sweet. But actually I do mind. I would much prefer if she came up to me. If she's really wanting this, if she really wants this, I would love it if she would come up to me, and I would be more than happy to give her my number. So back to some of the things that I even heard in y'all's previous associateship podcast is we are willing to like give back, like ask us to lunch. We'll pay for your lunch. Like we'll take you to coffee. Like just the act of being intentional and asking us for advice or for questions, I have so much respect for.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to put the ball in your court, and into their court. And I think yeah, I mean, people do that all the time. Like, if you just send a message and you ask, I'll send you anything, right? But it's like, if you're looking for a handout, then it's kind of like, dude, I put my hard time and effort into these kind of things. But if you're willing to invest that energy into me, I'm definitely willing to invest that back to you. And I think that's what we should, as business owners, we should be looking for someone who wants us to invest into them and somebody that we also want to invest in too. And so I want to kind of shift our conversation into like, not necessarily like tactical and practical, but more of like, can you walk us through, not necessarily like the linear, because nothing is necessarily linear, but like the kind of progression of, when you entered clinic and you've gone and you said, okay, like, I've done my deep dive into prenatal pediatrics. This is who I am. This is Dr. Brooks. I'm going to apply this in clinic. How are you applying the things in clinic? And how did you know that you're like, okay, I would rather be an associate than an owner? And then how did you start to like filter through the process of like, okay, who do I want to be with? Where do I want to go? What do I want out of this position, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, just walk us through like, how did you get to LifeSpring from clinic?
Okay. And keep me on track. I know you will.
You're good. That's a kind of a convoluted question.
So from the moment that I entered school, not even clinic, I always felt a pull towards associateship. The office, and I think this is why, I know this is why, the office that I originated in college, my very first chiropractor, they were a big team office. So there was like 5 doctors, 3 clinics, 4 or 5 doctors like in one clinic, one office space. And then they had like several other offices. And so I got to see very early on how chiropractic could be possible on a larger scale. And so I always had that team mindset. And I worked in that office, by the way. So I worked in that office, worked every position other than obviously DC. And I loved it. I loved the energy. I loved the motivation, the inspiration, the encouragement from other team members, how patients got exposure to different personalities and connected with different people other than just, the chiropractor, or that they got to see multiple different chiropractors and experience that. And so very early on, I knew I wanted to associate. So that's where I would start that conversation. As I got closer to clinic, you're so right. I definitely niched more into prenatal, pediatric, the perinatal phase of life. And that shifted my content. So that shifted, who I was talking to, whether that was future patients. But I was even thinking more long-term of, okay, if I'm going to make the change, I need to make it now, because as I actually start to implement practicing skills, like tactical clinical skills in clinic, to me, practicing communication on social media, that was also like a practice, if you will. And so I kind of combined the two. That clinic wasn't just in the clinic, like it was also my social media too, and communicating that. The next thing that I would say, as far as like how I actually got to LifeSpring, is I actually thought about associateship, like I said, long before clinic. And so in try 7 is when, so right before, if anybody's not familiar, tries 8, 9, and 10 at Parker University are considered your clinic year. And in trimester 7, so the trimester right before I started clinic, I reached out to a couple of offices via email, many of whom, I think it was 5 or 6, majority of whom I had shouted with, I had like a personal relationship with. I may have even worked in that office at one point. And I reached out, and I'll have to send you all the email. I wish I could read it. But it basically said, hi, I know some may consider this, I hope you're well, of course, the niceties. I know some may consider this, a little bit early, but to me, being proactive has never hurt me in the past. I would love to be considered as an associate for your practice upon graduation, December 2023. If you are interested, please let me know how we can proceed. Thanks. Look forward to hearing back. Talk to you soon. And those offices reached back out, and some proceeded quicker than others with interview processes, with contracts, with, conversations, whatever it may be. But I would say that's the real tea, if you will, or the big secret that is not a secret. I tell anybody that is that I started in Tri-7. And so I actually signed my contract with LifeSpring in July while I was in clinic. And we moved down here, and then I did my CBI with them and I graduated and continued on working. And one other note that I'll add there, just kind of to close the gaps. One of the other reasons why I wanted to reach out early is because I knew a lot of the offices I was interested in actually working for after weren't internship office associated with Parker. And so I wanted to intern, and then I wanted to work for them after. I wanted it to be like a really smooth and clean transition. And so I knew I needed to start that process early. So that way, if they weren't a part of the internship opportunity or internship offices at Parker, that they would have the time to be able to.
Yeah. Was LifeSpring an internship office before you were, so you were their first intern? Yeah. I mean, I think that's really cool. Like, if a lot of people don't think that either, is like, if you have somebody who like you love, and I'm pretty sure the standard is like, you have to be in practice for 5 years, and then you have to pass you have to like do like a charting profile audit or something like that. It's basically to make sure that you're compliant with all the things that you need to be compliant with, which like, I think we all should do that anyway, to whatever degree. You should be at least minimally compliant. And I mean, like, if you're not doing enough in your practice, I think for a student to gain value that is enough to be board certified, I think that you're like kind of missing the mark on your clinical excellence. But yeah, it's not that hard, I don't think, like to get an internship office. I think, once we hit the 5-year mark, that's our goal too, is to like bring in interns and stuff. One, because we're so close to Parker, and two, so we could just nurture the profession, like whether they stay or not. But see, like, you were able to work that and being proactive, because I'm sure it takes time for Matt to do that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Matt was actually the one who said, hey, I'm absolutely interested. Reach back out to me in a couple of months and we'll start the process. And so he really like was strategic about the timeliness of when he wanted everything to happen. Other offices were like, let's fly you out. Let's get an interview started. Like, let's do it. So some worked faster than others, and obviously it all ended up working out the way that it needed to.
Yeah. How was that like, how did that go down, like with Wade, who's your husband? Like, not everybody knows that Wade is your husband. He's such a cool guy. But like, how did that go over with him? Obviously he supports you, but like, how did you guys land on Austin? Because I'm sure that you had great opportunities. I know the people who you were kind of like not in network with, but like who you were in their sphere of influence, and they're great offices. So how did you land like on LifeSpring? How did you guys say like Austin is for us? And how did that dynamic go like with your relationship? Because not everybody's in a chiropractic couple and going to start their own practice like me and Zach.
Yeah, totally. Lots of prayer, lots and lots of prayer. I will say that just to be guided by the Lord, that we wouldn't be divided in that process of figuring it all out, that the Lord would really make it clear that wherever we were meant to be, we both would. And I hesitate using the word feel good, right? Because not every decision always feels good, even if it's the right one, but that we would feel confident that the Lord was leading us in that way for a reason, right? And so lots of prayer. And earlier in the episode, I mentioned kind of there was lots of unknown there. This is actually kind of what I was referencing in that, there were some different opportunities in different places. And so it was like, I remember telling our families, we're at all the places throughout the US that we were looking, and they were like, we thought y'all were going to stay in Texas, but, which we did, but there was some opportunities to not. And so, as far as how everything really settled in with LifeSpring, and then I'll answer the Wade conversation. I wrote down in my notebook, which is in my closet over there, a couple of words before I reached out to offices. It was the way that I narrowed down which offices I was going to reach out to. So I did not cast a wide net. I actually started really, really specific. I just didn't want to waste my time. I didn't want to waste their time. And so I wrote down like core values that I had, that I wanted in an associateship, and then reached out to those offices who met that criteria. And some of those things were chiropractic first. So I really wanted to work in an office where that was the focus. Even if there were other modalities, I was okay with that. But I personally really wanted the adjustment to be the focus. That's LifeSpring. We only adjust, right? Another thing was I wanted fun to be a part of the conversation. I wanted it to be a part of the associateship. So literally just the core value of fun. And if you know anything about Dr. Matt, shadowed us at LifeSpring. We like to have fun. Fridays, we listen to like these hip hop. Sometimes before shift meetings, we'll do like a dance party. Like we just like to have fun. So fun was a core value. And then a couple of other things, but I really got into the core values and LifeSpring hit all of those. And when I tell you guys, if I read to you like word for word, everything came true, from payment structure, from the number, from the layout of the contract, from the paragraph that I wrote about what I wanted my week to look like and feel like and what I wanted to be able to do in whatever city I lived in. That's what I'm living. And so on a bad day, I just pull that out and I'm like, hey,
Yeah, right.
like God gotcha, you know? But as far as the Wade part of all of this, my better half, if you will, he absolutely was 100% supportive throughout the whole process. I think when you have a partner or spouse who is not necessarily in the chiropractic world, they are by association. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is a lifestyle, you know? So he understood that, hey, long term, and I love when y'all talk about like playing big, right? He understood that he's an accountant, by the way. So we always joke like job security is really good for us. Everybody needs an accountant. Everybody needs a chiropractor, unless, you know, AI and big tech take over. But nonetheless, he was always super supportive in that, hey, like where your dream kind of takes you, like that's our long term. Like that, like not everything's bet on me, but long term, we do want our own practice. And so practices. And so, you know, he knew that, hey, go after whatever you need to help us get to where we're really going. And thankfully, the Lord provided him with an amazing job opportunity that's also in Austin. He literally works in downtown, you know, 10 minutes south of where he's at. Sometimes we even commute to work together. And so, yeah, we're kind of living the dream, but everything worked out and he's been totally supportive throughout it all.
That's pretty
That's
sweet.
That is awesome. So with that, now that we've kind of transitioned to you being in Austin, how did you go from an associateship standpoint? How did you go about really getting ingrained in not just necessarily the LifeSpring culture, but then finding your own community in Austin for ideal clients and just really creating your life down there?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
how
my
did
next
that
question.
transition go?
Heck yeah. I love it. So church is a huge way that we've been able to get plugged in. Wade and I both, kind of our whole mission of marriage, more biblically or more faithfully, has been being a welcoming space for people. So we knew that wherever we moved next, we wanted to be in a space that actually led a lot of our decision on what locations we looked at for living and like the actual home itself, things like that, because we wanted a space to host. Whether that was, you know, a friend coming in for the weekend, family, if they wanted to join us for a couple of days, or a small group, ideally. And so church has been a huge blessing. Obviously, we host a small group every Wednesday night. So many friends have come from that. Patients as well have come from that, to be honest with you, but in a very healthy way, right? We had relationship first, we had friendship first, and then trust was built, right? And people naturally were like, tell me more about this nervous system stuff, you know, like it just naturally progressed into them becoming patients, which is really cool. But it didn't start that way. I just want to make that clear, right? And then another way is connecting with actually a lot of practitioners, not in chiropractic and in chiropractic, who are kind of where I'm at, who maybe are also associating. Like I think about Dr. Emily Tran. She's a pelvic floor PT at Eastside Movement Co. And she's technically, right, like kind of an associate as well. She's early on in her career. And so I sought out people, whether that was through social media or other references or referrals, or who patients were using that the patients really loved. And I would reach out to them. And so connecting with other practitioners who were in a similar boat as I am. So a lot of, I think, associates, when they jump into an office, they want to, and this is okay to do, but they want to reach out to like the most established office, the owner of that office, and like connect with them. Awesome. Like do your thing, live it up, go big, right? Like we've talked about. But what about the people who are like in the same boat as you and who are like in the same grind mindset as you and living the same life as you and trying to do the same things as you? Like there is something to be said for that. And so I would encourage associates like, hey, yeah, be a fan and like go after the big dogs, if you will, but don't forget about the ones who are trying to do exactly what you're trying to do and who probably will have a lot more like willingness to meet up with you or film with you or share about you than maybe some of the big dogs sometimes.
Zach, you're muted. I think that's so great. I want to like moving on to that too. So that's like your expectation, how you're getting in like the Austin community. What was the expectation? Because like, I know you started as an intern, and so the transition was a lot smoother. Like intern / new doc. What was the expectation of your role whenever you first started with LifeSpring? And because like, yes, you want an office that, you know, empowers your personality and empowers you. At the same time, though, it's like getting you to empower the culture of the office and for you to fit kind of not into necessarily the wheel, but like for you to fit into the day-to-day flow. So what was dang, dude, the dog is crazy. What was the
expectation?
Yeah, what was the expectation of you as intern / new DC Brooks into starting life?
Well, I have my answer, but I think Dr. Matt would probably have an even more specific answer, but I'll answer it the best that I can. First and foremost, Dr. Matt's interview process is mostly on culture and who you are as a human. I mean, we did not talk chiropractic until probably the 3rd round. He just got to know me as a human and made sure that I was a good fit in that regard. And oh man, I don't want to give away like all his secrets. So
don't give away his secrets and stuff.
He does such a good job of that. So I would say first and foremost, like I was already a good culture fit, if you will. But then as I actually transitioned into the office, so I didn't really have to worry about that at all. Like personalities in the office, I was not concerned about at all with fitting in or being a part of being, you know, a cog in the wheel. That wasn't a worry at all. As far as expectations go in other realms, he did want me to help out with social media as I was building my patient load, but I was viewed or at least communicated that you have a seat at this table. Like you haven't graduated yet, but like you are viewed like as a doctor, like, as a chiropractor. When we do team meetings, when we do chiropractor meetings, you have a voice. So I was always encouraged to just jump in from the start and communicate my thoughts or my questions literally from the start. So expectation wise, I never felt the weight of, I never felt the pressure of. If you have any specific questions as far as like getting patients in or adjusting, like I'm happy to go into that. But just kind of a general view. I mean, I helped out with social media until my caseload built up to the point where I had to pass that on to somebody else. But other than that, I was welcomed with open arms to have a seat at the table and to share my voice.
That's really cool. And then going into that, like, so I know just from following, I don't know necessarily what it looks like, but y'all do a lot of chiropractic training as a team. And so what does that look like for you being the quote young doc, right? When you go into a chiro training, like, is it Dr. Matt talking the whole time? Is it very collaborative? I'm very curious on that from more of an owner side of things.
Yeah. So I led a doc meeting when I was an intern, and it was probably like a month or 2 in, if that answers your question. Mm-hmm. And I led it on prenatal and pediatrics. So he really utilizes like our strengths. We kind of, I wouldn't say rotate every week, but there are weeks like Dr. Tony or Antonia, right? She is an intern right now. And she led our meeting a few weeks ago on cranials. So he really gets you plugged in. LifeSpring is just a leadership. We have leadership, you know, as part of our core values and our culture. And so he really gets you plugged in and into saying yes, even when you feel a little bit scared to do so. Because trust me, I was scared when I led my first meeting. Mm-hmm. But as far as like the more common meetings, yes, Dr. Matt is usually leading those. However, it is very collaborative. So like, we're like all, whether it's technique, whether it's philosophy, whether it's just like, we're all like kind of in, you know, and if it is technique specific, like for example, Dr. Justin is amazing with extremities. So is Dr. Bailey. Like, and so he'll, even if Dr. Matt's leading, he'll kind of pull them in on
studs.
Yeah. He'll pull them in on some things to like, hey, how would you think through that? Right. What would you do in this scenario? Here's what I would do, but what would you do? And we'll rotate like who's doctor, who's patient. It feels very school-like, if you will. But yeah, we're like all very hands-on in that regard. So he organizes everything. To summarize, he organizes it, or he will put in charge somebody to organize a meeting, but we're all very collaborative and work as a team, literally, in those trainings.
And are y'all seeing each other's patients, or do you have your...
That was my next question.
Yeah. So team, which means that, yeah, we actually, even the language we use isn't my patient or your patient. We use in the office, like, let's say So to answer your question, yes, just to be like really direct, we see each other's patients, but we don't use that verbiage because we're to power. And so if we're going through our schedule, we'll label a coverage visit indicating that there is a different primary doc. There's a different lead doctor on that particular patient's case. But yeah. So to be direct, yes, but we use kind of a different language around it.
Yeah, to dive into that, like whenever you started on as an intern, were you like helping out with mainly like back end systems, onboarding stuff, like your day one, day two, like those kind of things? Or was he just like, here's a couple people start like going crazy and like all those kind of things? Like, how did you get into saying like, okay, like, because we don't do like a my patient, your patient. We just saying like, hey, I'm doing your onboarding today. Like I'll be doing your intro. We're a collaborative office and stuff. So I'll be doing your first 2 visits, and help you get into the office and everything. But like, we don't delineate like, my patients, Zach's patients. Those
totally. So very similar vibe then.
Yeah.
Very
So like, how did it go from you? Like you walk in the door at LifeSpring, you never spent a day there, to now you're like fully ingrained, you have a full caseload, you're onboarding patients, you're leading doctors trainings. What was that like progression like to get you to like a full adjusting schedule?
Yeah. So definitely training was involved. I did not see my first new patient until mid my internship. So the internship is like 3 months long. But from that, I mean, it was like, all right, you're out of the gate, go kind of thing. But prior to that, lots of training. So yeah, Dr. Matt had prepared kind of a training breakdown or calendar or schedule for me when I hired on. So we had different videos of day 1s, day 2s, and then he fostered our doc trainings to support what I was learning through his trainings. So let's say I would watch, week 1, I was watching videos on, really not week 1. I was doing more like just general understanding of the systems of the office and shadowing for the first couple of weeks. And then once I started looking into day 1, that's what I was like honed in on. So our doc training was on day 1. For the next couple of weeks, I would mostly only shadow day 1s for any of the doctors. So that way it was just like getting ingrained. And then that transitioned to day 2. And then I would meet with him every week as well. And we would actually role play these things. So
nice.
I was, again, actually doing, and he was encouraging, like, do this with Wade, do this, call your mom after and like do this with her, right? Like just the more you do it, the better you get, obviously, nothing new there. But yeah, we would do check-ins and he would actually workshop it with me. And that's what gave him, I think, the comfort to be like, all right, like you're good. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just asked that because I feel like at least whenever we were in school, like when everybody's talking about like, what CBI do you want to go to? What internship do you want to go to? The question is how much are they going to let you adjust?
Yeah.
And on my end as an intern, I was like, am I going to have a doctor that trusts me enough that lets me actually see people and not just adjust the CAs for my credits to meet my minimums? But at the same time, now being on the other end, thinking about like the kind of cases that we see, the kind of people that we see. Can you guys hear this crazy noise that's right here? What is that?
Barely.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Well, like it's like the street sweeper, I think. But it's like the noisiest day is like Tuesday morning, I guess. But anyway, like going from like now knowing like the kind of cases that we see, the way that we communicate, the value that we build, the way that we lead the team, like it would take somebody that I have a lot of trust in to just give them the full reins to be like, hey, whatever you want to do, you want to do. And I think that a lot of, at least me, I had to grow a lot in this. I was like really judgmental as an intern at other offices that were like, what do you mean that I'm only sweeping the floor and changing the face paper and stuff? Like that's honestly an honor, like that you get to be on the floor talking to people, communication and all of those kind of things. But I think that sets a really good expectation for either you're in an internship or an associateship into how fast you're going to be involved into the practice and stuff. Because I mean, you can be the best adjuster in the world, but you might not be the best adjuster that fits into that office quite yet.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, so thanks for providing that perspective because like, I just really value always talking to you because it gives me a lot of perspective from the other side. And we know that you're a rock star doctor, whether you own your practice or not. And so hearing your perspective from the other end of being like, I'm not the one on the EIN tax ID for the business and stuff. It's good to hear your perspective on
Yeah, no, thanks for letting me share it. I really appreciate it. And just one more thing to add to kind of what you were saying, it goes back to what we chatted a little bit about earlier is like where value is, like students want to place in the internship world, they want to place it only on the adjustment and how many adjustments they can get. And, if we could shift our perspective a little bit to understand maybe where there's other value to be learned and to be had, then I think people would have a lot more positive views on what an internship could be.
Yeah, for sure. Zach, you got any closing thoughts?
No, I think, really one thing I know you wanted to hit on and kind of just to bring this full circle is obviously LifeSpring is not a pediatric prenatal office, but what you are bringing now and what I've seen from you and Dr. Matt and just the content y'all are putting out is this concept of developing generational health, which I personally love. That was our mission at Within for a long time. And so how has that fit in where Dr. Matt was or where LifeSpring was, if that question makes sense? Like how has pediatric prenatal kind of meshed with LifeSpring?
Yeah, I think LifeSpring has always seen kiddos, seen families, kind of like most chiropractic offices who aren't niched into pediatric and prenatal. Your patients have kids and, or siblings or whatever it may be. So they naturally kind of come in. And I think the real difference is maybe just the attention that we're now putting on it and understanding that LifeSpring's mission as a whole is to change the way the world views health. My mission, personal, right, and of course chiropractically, is to cultivate generational health and more professionally through chiropractic care. And so I'm really grateful that my own personal mission meshes well with LifeSpring's, because what my view on it is, and I think the other docs would probably agree, is one of the best ways to change the way the world views health is to start with the kids. Right. And to allow kids to become more and more healthy, because what they become, they pass down. You could even say that for ourselves, right? What you become, you pass down. And so generational health is a really simple concept. It's exactly what it sounds like, right? It's just what you pass down from generation to generation. And if we can pass down more health in this world, I think that we're doing a pretty good job personally. So it was an easy fit because the mission of LifeSpring was already something that worked really, really well with my own personal brand and mission.
Really cool.
Yeah, I love it. I think like, don't miss the fact that Brooks just said LifeSpring's mission is to X, Y, and Z, and my personal mission is to X, Y, and Z. And I think that's such a huge thing. One, that keeps you rooted in who you are, but two, that's the thing. If you're an owner and you can have an associate that has their own personal mission that fits in with yours, like those two like really fit together. And I think as an owner too, it's like your personal mission should fit with your business's mission. Like Empower's mission is to become the first resource for families. And my personal mission though is to make people stronger and more confident in attaining the purpose that God has on their life. And so like my goal is to empower both my employees, my team, not even employees, we don't use that word because like I agree words have power, but like my team and the people that we serve and our community into that. And I want them to do that through our business. And so, but I think that's so important. And it's a really good sign of one, like really rock solid identity for you, but really rock solid identity for LifeSpring. And those two fit really well together. So don't miss that. That was like really good. Brooks, do you have any closing remarks or any advice? Because we have like our last question that we'll ask you, but any closing remarks for our listeners?
Yeah, well, I just want to again say thank you so much to Dr. Zach and Dr. Spencer for having me on. I am a fan of the What Now podcast, so this is very full circle for me, especially to think back to the impact, like I mentioned at the very start of this episode, that you guys had on my own personal chiropractic journey and are continuing to through this podcast and what y'all share. So thank you so, so much. One thing that I will say, I don't know when this episode is coming out, but
probably soon.
Okay, cool. Good. I'm excited. But one thing I will say just in regarding to generational health is this is the first place I'm announcing it, but I'll actually be having a book coming out soon about
Whoa.
And so I'm really excited to announce that. There's definitely some things that we're wrapping up and finishing up on it, but keep an eye out for that.
Dang, sick. That's awesome. Okay, so last question. If you could go back to day one, not even pre-DC, sophomore year of high school, chiropractor, I want to be a chiropractor. That's when I decided I want to be a chiropractor as well, sophomore year of high school. if you could go back to that day one on mission for chiropractic, or just becoming who you are, it doesn't even matter if you're a chiropractor. If you could go back to Brooks that day, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give to yourself?
Oh, man, I listened to y'all's podcast and I've thought about this, how I would answer this question. And I still am really wanting to be really thoughtful about it. I would say, actually, what's on my wall over there, Exodus 14:14, which is the Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. And I would say that because I tend to be somebody who's like, go, 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 go. There's the stillness.
Great. That's great. Okay, guys. Well, thanks so much for listening to another episode of the What Now podcast. Brooks, thanks so much. I'll definitely be buying your book because even though I consider us friends, I'm also a fan of yours.
Good to say.
This was fantastic. Thanks so much for being on the What Now podcast. Guys, share the show and we'll see you guys next time. Peace. Oh.